How can fascism come out of a democracy? This has been a central question that political theorists have been trying to answer since Hitler and Mussolini rose to power. There have been several explanations, such as the fallout of the World War I economy led to an international oppression, which the German people seek stability and order in their lives, or that the Social Democratic Party and Communist Party of Germany didn't do nearly enough to prevent the National Socialists from gaining power in the Reichstag. At around the same time Hitler gained full power in Germany, another explanation surfaced. The book The Mass Psychology of Fascism by Wilhelm Reich did not look toward historical conditions or party politics, but rather looked at what made the German people and culture gravitate toward a personality like Hitler's. Reich posited from a psychoanalytic perspective that the German people were drawn to the Nazi Party because the Nazi Party tapped into the people's unconscious. The German people were already ripe for the picking, as the structure of the German family, as well as the power of Catholicism, prevented sexual freedom. As Reich says, suppression of the natural sexuality in the child, particularly of his genital sexuality, makes the child apprehensive, shy, obedient, afraid of authority, good and adjusted to the authoritarian sense. It paralyzes the rebellious forces because any rebellion is laden with anxiety. It produces, by inhibiting sexual curiosity and sexual thinking in the child, a general inhibition of thinking and of critical faculties. In brief, the goal of sexual suppression is that of producing an individual who is adjusted to the authoritarian order and who will submit to it in spite of all misery and degradation. With this crushing of rebelliousness, Reich believes that along with the terrorism of the Nazi Party, the takeover of the economy, supremacy of religion, and punishing education systems helped create the generation of fascists that ran Germany. More psychoanalysts would follow in Reich's work, such as Anti-Oedipus by Gilles Deleuze and Philippe Guattari, which seek to understand why people desire their own oppression, and The Authoritarian Personality by Theodore W. Adorno, which is to investigate which traits in personality identify fascist tendencies. These works came under heavy criticism in later years as being too reliant on Freudian ideas of human behavior, as well as being biased towards a Marxist political stance, instead of being purely scientific, but it did help in the development of social psychology. Behaviorist psychologists also have many perspectives on how fascism has grown. The behaviorist heavyweight B.F. Skinner has been accused of encouraging fascism on multiple occasions in his book Walden 2. He said about the book that it might be basically fascist, that it gives aid and comfort to fascism. Maybe it does in a sense. But whether it gives advantage to fascism depends entirely on whether other ways of life are able to take advantage of what we are learning about human behavior. This is a warning. Skinner believes that behavior sciences are simply a tool, so whether or not it can be used to nefarious ends depends on who has the power to use it. In his book, Skinner portrayed a society in which behavior was controlled through behavior psychological methods in order to garner a perfect society. This perfect society was being tested in China decades before the publication of Walden 2. In the 20s and 30s, China was in the midst of a massive political transformation, and many intellectuals had their minds set on creating a fascist China through the Nationalist Party. Psychologists returning from studying abroad were funded by the Nationalist Party to use behavioral methods and influence the Chinese people into accepting fascism. The most prominent of these psychologists was Xingyang Kuo, and he instructed his students at Zhejiang University to sympathize with a fascist way of life through dress codes. The expulsion of communist professors and students, suppression of individual expression, downplaying liberalism, daily drills, and fostering patriotism. He believed that the human character can be changed. If one's environment and education are sound, then any type of society is possible. This society wouldn't come to fruition, however, as Mao and the Communist Party came to power in the 40s and nationalist sympathizers left China. Carl Jung, the Swiss humanist psychologist, had first-hand experience with fascism. In 1933 Germany, he accepted the presidency of the German General Medical Society of Psychotherapy. Despite the accusations of accepting the position as a sign that Jung was a Nazi, Jung made many efforts to protect his Jewish colleagues from Nazi persecution, such as making the society an international organization so his colleagues could be members and make a policy that their Jewish ethnicity should be kept in secret. This didn't stop the Nazis from using Jung's ideas for their own benefit. As Hermann Göring's cousin, Matthias, says, he expects all its members who are actively engaged in writing or lecturing to have made a serious scientific study of Adolf Hitler's fundamental work, My Battle, and to recognize it as a basic work. The society will cooperate with the Chancellor's work in educating the German nation to a heroic, self-sacrificing state of mind. When Jung left Germany in the mid-30s to the US, he suggested that Germany was projecting their unconscious fears toward other countries, thus creating a rise in nationalistic ideals and military insecurity. In cognitive psychology, the study of fascism and right-wing politics in general is muddled with controversy, with psychologists accusing each other of being unscientific and politically biased. This sort of thing is not uncommon in social sciences, but there really is no general position cognitive psychologists take on studying political ideologies in general. In a paper by Dr. Kevin Durkheim, Cognition and Ideology, Durkheim claims in his abstract that the idea of authoritarian personality undermines this traditional attempt to develop a psychological critique of fascism, because the emergent nature of cognitive processing means that a pervasive psychological irrationality cannot underlie fascist thinking, and the debates on those claims continue today. There have been a number of experiments inspired by the actions of fascists, and are still being studied as to how fascism rises, and how people can be coerced to believe in fascism, such as the Milgram experiment, which was created by Stanley Milgram, who wanted to know if the Nazis in the Nuremberg trial really were responsible for their own actions or just following orders. The experiment involves a participant pulling electrical switches to shock a participant that is in another room, each switch increasing the voltage of the shock. An actor playing a researcher is present, and their job is to instruct the participant to keep going. Of course, the participant in the other room isn't being shocked, just pretending to be in pain. In Poland, the experiment is still being conducted as recent as March 2017 at the University of Social Sciences and Humanities, and are still finding that people will indeed pull the switches to a high voltage simply because an authority figure told them to do it. Fascism is a complex and diverse ideology that cultural, political, and psychological theorists are still trying to figure out, but perhaps studying human behavior can give a perspective as to how humanity falls into grave inhumanity.